Hi there, and hope you had a nice weekend. We are going to look at an analogy that I found really amazing, and I hope you'll like it, and I hope you'll see the value of sort of like you know cross pollination. Taking teachings from another ecosystem and mix it with ours, or like contextualize it to what we teach here. Oftentimes, I think it's when we hear something in a different way, in a new way, that things can really click. So this is why I wanted to share the pea brain analogy here. That I want to first of all thank Lily Seiss for sharing with us slash with me. I was on a call with Lily. By the way, Lily is an anxiety coach, has a big following on TikTok and Instagram, and she said something about like pea brain, and I didn't understand it immediately, but after the call I was like, oh, Lily, I think I understand it now. And I shared how I saw it with her, and she's like, she said, yeah, I think you got it. I don't remember exactly if she sort of completely approved with the way I was using it, but I think it made sense. And so I wrote a newsletter about this pea brain analogy. And actually, by the way, just quickly here, we'll get into the teaching in a second, but as soon as I sent out the newsletter Friday, I got a copy myself, and the title was just like pea brain, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I didn't like insult all of the people getting the newsletter, thinking that I was like, hey, pea brain. Of course it wasn't like that. It was just like I just named it that because it doesn't name the analogy, but it was a comic moment. I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? But anyways, that happened. I hope nobody was insulted by getting an email saying pea brain. Of course, that was just the name of the analogy. And now I sent a copy of it to Lily herself, thanking her for it. And she said, oh, she said, oh, this was so nicely written. So that was very nice to hear, of course. But she said also, she said, credit goes to Christine Heath from the Psychology Has It Backwards podcast. So I want to mention Christine also and thank her as well for the pea brain analogy. And now I have to reach out to Christine also, see if she wants to be a guest here and share her wisdom with us. But anyway, that was the backstory of this analogy. Now let's get into it. And I want to start here. We can sort of divide the brain, or how we think about the brain, into two parts, if we will. We can think of the brain as having like a conscious part and a subconscious part. And I think this doesn't merit very much further teaching. We all know, like the conscious part is like things like I can decide to lift this hand like this, or some things are under kind of our conscious control, and some things are subconscious. There's stuff going on that we are not really aware of, right? And if we expand on this, we can think of the body, the entirety of us, as having logic and wisdom. And what I mean by logic and wisdom, well, basically logic is something that is seated in the brain, logically figure out things, and wisdom is broader than that. So we can think of logic, if we think of, again, we think of the brain and the body like a human being as having logic. Well, logic is something that is consciously figure outable, and it sort of resides in the brain, if you will. That's logic. And then we also have what Lily, and I think others in her community, which is the 3P community, 3 principles community, call wisdom. And wisdom, when it comes to in this context, is is centered around things that are not consciously figure outable, things that we just cannot logically figure out with our brain, if we will. So with this little intro here, we're gonna for the first time ever gamify this video by playing Guess the Domain. So we're gonna play Guess the Domain here real quickly, and I'm gonna give you two examples, and I'm gonna ask you to guess to which domain this task belongs to, whether this is in the purview of logic or the purview of wisdom. So the first one is this: figuring out how to open a can of Japanese tomatoes, or maybe I should say a Japanese can of tomato, Japanese tomato can, something like that. But just imagining that you're familiar with a certain can of tomatoes and how to open it, but you're in this exotic place. So I just picked Japan, and we're going to assume that the cans look different. They're a little different. So what are we going to use to open these cans? Is going to be logic or wisdom? if you said logic, that was the correct answer here. We can look at a can of tomatoes and just deduce about thinking, pondering. Yeah, oh yeah, I think I figure out how to do this, right? That is logic. How about this one? Growing a baby inside a mother's womb, making sure that the baby has, two arms, two legs, a nose, a liver, and making sure all those little organs are working correctly. Is this in the purview of logic or wisdom? Well, if you said wisdom, that is correct. There's just no way we can control this or really understand this and do this, logically. This is beyond that. This is in the purview of wisdom. Now, we're going to ask ourselves another question, which is, what happens if we try to deploy logic for a task that is outside of its purview? And so the way I, answer this question is actually by another analogy, an analogy with an analogy, if you will. And it is by imagining a child, imagining, like, I don't know, a 10-year-old child to create a solar system with like a sun and 8 planets and things of that nature. How is that child going to react? Well, there can be a range of reactions, and we could have, for example, comic disbelief, and we can have like significant inner struggle. Comic disbelief, it would be when the child goes, like, just thinks that this is a joke, like, how am I going to be able to do that, and just like thinks, you're just playing with her. But if for some reason we asked this in a very serious way, we said, like, please do this, and there was some pressure behind it, and the child really thought, oh my gosh, they really wanted me to do this, they expect me to do this, that could be really, really anxiety provoking for this little child, right? Because they have no clue how to do that, you know. And so, with this in mind, let us actually contextualize this for our community, for what we talk about here, which is insomnia and the struggles with sleep, of course. And I was toying around with the idea of, like, introducing another, like, guess the purview here, or guess the domain here. But I said, let me just actually cut to kind of the real insight here, or the real teaching point here, which is that sleep, of course, falls into the purview of wisdom. There is no way any human being can control sleep logically or make sure, sleep happens. Or this is not a task for which the logic part of the brain is designed. And the same thing, not only kind of sleep, generally speaking, but falling asleep, when we wake up, staying asleep, that all belongs to wisdom. So does thoughts, producing thoughts and producing emotions, sensations. And the subconscious domain is also, like, this is all within wisdom. This is not, not places where logic has control, where there's no, this is outside of the purview of logic. And I think that is, in a way, for safety reasons. Like, imagine if we could consciously control, the enzymes in our liver, or the speed of digestion through our intestinal tracts, and or the growth of our fingernails, or falling in love and things like that. It would be just overwhelming, and confusing, and frankly dangerous, if those were within the logic purview. So I think it's for safety reasons that this is all already baked into kind of like the human, body mind complex, to take care of this. It's already built in, like, now, here's the thing, like, when we're in a struggle, of course, we want that struggle to end, and we want to have a sense of control. So what we often do is this misassignment, if you will. We misassign logic. We task logic to regulate sleep. And for the reasons we have seen above, this can lead to significant inner struggle. And I think lots of this is probably familiar to you if you follow the channel for a while. But I thought this analogy was a new take on it, because or I put it this way: what I see as new here is this picture of, like, this little child who's asked to create a solar system or something like that, which is like completely outside of what a child can do, right? And it can be so clear that, oh my gosh, what we're asking here is just, it's like saying, asking somebody to willfully, you know grow a baby in their wombs again. Like it's just we cannot do that with our logic brain, with our P brain. And we see this clearly. I think that can lead to so much relief. Actually, it can be like, oh my gosh, I've been trying to task this like logic part of my brain with something that's completely outside of its purview. And of course I've struggled because of this, which is, not an invitation to self-kindness. We always do this. We all deploy logic to things that are outside the scope of logic. But just seeing this can be so clearly. So misassigning logic to regular sleep can lead to significant inner struggle. But I want to say that something that actually falls within the purview of logic and is really helpful is education. Like this, listening to this, learning, picking up a book, reading. That, education to me is logic. Like, we can deploy our logic brain to learn something. Now, then again, like we can learn something, and how this education like translates into change, that on the other hand is kind of on the purview of wisdom again. So logic has its limitation, but uh, when we task the P brain, which is what how Lily used this analogy. What I call logic here, she basically called P brain, the little brain. When we task our brain with learning, for example, or things that is within its purview, then it can reach the limits of logic, and then it can let wisdom take it from there. And I think oftentimes we need that. We need to sort of understand what we're dealing with, or what's, we need the educational foundation to then see, aha, now I see it clearly. Now I can let wisdom take over and lead me to where I want to be, which is that place of peaceful sleep and peace of mind. I hope this analogy was helpful on your path to where we all want to be. And if you're finding your way there, then please let us know. Write a comment, or in some other way, share it with us. It would be really nice to hear that. On the other hand, if you find that things are not easy, you're struggling, it's hard for you to see a path to where you want to be, and you would like a little bit more support and education, presented to you in a logical way on your path to where you want to be, then head over to thesleepcoachschool.com. Check out our coaching options. And if you decide to join any of our programs, then we look forward to seeing you on the other side. That was it for today. Again, let me know what you thought about this, and look forward to having you here back soon. Until then, I'll just say bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.